This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, everyone, we'll call to order the Monterey Select Board, December 14th at 6 PM. Justin Maycook, President at Town Hall, and Susan Cooper is also President at Town Hall. And I believe Scott is on his way.
Yeah.
So we'll hold off a minute for Scott.
Hello, everybody.
Smells like hot chocolate.
There's some chocolate in my son. So Justin's coffee always smells so good that I finally couldn't take it anymore. Fruit coffee.
We're just waiting for a minute to see if Scott can log
Your other
on.
option is to call in and use that code again. Yeah, but I'm going to have to. You're gonna have to dial 646-749-3122, and when it asks for the access code, do 131-628-157. All right, okay. No problem. Obviously couldn't fit it.
Okay.
Sorry about the delay, folks.
Is that you, Scott?
Yes, it is. I'm not certain if you can hear me. I don't know.
We
how to
can.
mute.
We can hear you, Scott.
I'm
Can you hear
not
us?
Yes, I can, but how do you know that?
Cause we can hear you.
Well, then it's great. Here we go.
All right, so, sorry for the little delay, everybody, but before we get into business, there are a few more people here than usual, so it's going to be extra important to wait to be called on to speak, and also please remember to identify yourself before speaking, just to keep things orderly. The first item is reallocate American Rescue Plan Act funds from Greene Park Playground project and Community Center Pavilion project to fund fuel budget overrun. So this is something that we discussed last week. Our fuel budget has hit zero, despite the fact that we increased it last year by 50%, if I'm not mistaken, to $30,000, and we're not even halfway through the fiscal year. I think we're in agreement that's almost all due to an increase in diesel and gas prices.
That and having a full crew that's running 5 men machines instead of only 2.
Yes, so we have,
Although the usage doesn't seem, from Frank's analysis, the usage didn't seem to be up significantly. Did it?
Yeah, no.
That was my impression.
what Frank had said is that usage is up a little bit and prices are up a lot. So we've obviously spent through our whole budget in less than 6 months, which is the problem that hopefully we can resolve today. Well, we discussed these options last week, but I'll restate them. We can call a special town meeting and ask for the money from free cash or stabilization. Or another idea that's been proposed is to renege or readjust the ARPA funds that were allocated to specifically the playground project and the pavilion project to get those funds. Since I'm the only one speaking, but Susan or Scott, jump in when you want to. I think that we should call a special town meeting to get these funds. I know that special town meetings have a bad stigma, if they've been, if they're overused or abused, and we already had one this year, so no one is happy about the need to call a second one, but everyone can agree that we need fuel to run the vehicles. And I think the state of our free cash and stabilization funds more than allows for asking for $40,000 from one or the other. We have, by the numbers I have, we have 461,000 more or less in free cash and more than 600,000 in general stabilization fund, which combines to be about 1,069,000. So there's money there to pay for the fuel overage. And the question is whether we want to take from that 1,069,000 to pay for the fuel overage, or avoid a special town meeting and readjust the ARPA funds. My inclination is leaning towards just calling a special town meeting for January 14th or 21st, which are both Saturdays, and ask for the money from free cash or stabilization, which I feel would be a reasonable request.
So I will jump in. So far, I think you presented a pretty good picture of things. I'm gonna throw a couple more things out there. I feel like, my concern is that we've already had a special town meeting, this is gonna be another, and I am not completely confident that we're not gonna have additional issues with the budget, this year's budget, and that we won't end up with a third special town meeting. So part of the reason I would even consider, I'm not even gonna call it reneging. I would consider setting aside some of the ARPA funds, but I would like to see us make a commitment to, for lack of a better way to phrase it, replace those funds at the next town meeting, whether it's an STM or a all town meeting, annual town meeting. Because I feel like there may well be another shortfall that requires yet another special town meeting. And that's a concern to me, but I don't see it, like, the budget is the budget, and the realities of municipal budgeting mean we can't just do what you do if it was your personal budget. You can't just decide to eat some fewer beans and use the money to pay for fuel. You can't do that, because you can't move it from line to line. We definitely have the money in free cash and stabilization, but we can't move it without a special town meeting. I support both of these projects. I think they're important projects, and I think they're good projects. I also feel really bad that I feel like my lack of municipal administrative experience, I wish that I had been in a position to help both of the groups navigate the process in a way that would have allowed for things to be to have all of the required paperwork and engineering things and everything done beforehand. I feel bad that it came to that, and I feel like I'm learning as I go, and I feel like that's a ball I dropped. And I feel bad about it. I also think the reality is, because of the hoops you do have to jump through to do municipal projects, the timeline is never what you wish it was, right? No matter what, I think that the timeline is longer than you would hope for, and that it doesn't get done as quickly as you'd like, because there are all these hoops. And we can complain about those hoops as much as we like, but they are our reality. So I'm not completely opposed to doing another town meeting. I'm worried, I don't wanna end up with 4 special town meetings in a year, it gives me nightmares thinking about that. And maybe it's not the end of the world, right? I'm willing to own that. And I do feel bad, but I also feel like I am concerned that projects are going to end up costing more than we think they're gonna cost, just looking at everything that's going on and all the inflation rates. And that we may end up having to go to special town meeting for those shortfalls anyway. And maybe not, maybe you guys can figure out a way to do private fundraising and come into that situation to meet whatever that shortfall is. But we were short money to begin with, right? We didn't have enough money to fully fund both projects anyway. So I kind of feel like we're gonna end up having to go to town meeting for whatever that gap is anyway. We don't know what the gap will be. I think Justin's more hopeful that we could get those numbers down and not have a shortfall, and I'm a little less certain of that. So I'm kind of on the fence, and I could be swayed either way. I just feel like we still have more hoops to jump through for the projects. I think there will be overruns if we can meet this temporary need. I think it might be a good way to go, because I do think there's gonna end up being another special meeting at some point between now and the end of that meeting.
Scott, do you have anything to add before you start calling on the public?
Well, first of all, I truly apologize. I'm not there. I've gotten some type of a cold. It may be the beginning of another flu. Who knows? But that's my problem. My duty is in that room right now and thinking this through for the last week since we began this conversation. It seemed at the time that robbing from Peter to pay Paul was the appropriate way to do it, since the funds are available and are allocatable to this deficit. So it seemed like, why wouldn't we do that, knowing that we do have the potential for shortfalls for those two major ARPA projects that we allocated the money to, and that we would then have to come to the town to get more funds to make that deficit up. So at some point, we're going to ask for some funds for either the ARPA shortfalls, which I think are still coming, and or gasoline and fuel shortfalls. So I guess the question is, when do you want to pony up? Early, we can have that meeting January 12th and put it on the floor and let the voters decide, which is a great way to do it. Or we can say, all right, we understand the dilemma, and we're either doing it January 12th or we're doing it in May. And in which case, in May, we would be asking for any of the potential shortages that we have taken from those funds today, being at roughly 30 grand, it may be 40. I'm not certain what the actual amount is. So it's really up to the people of the town of Monterey. We can do it one way or another, and that's really where it is. I understand whichever way the town wants to go is the way I want to go. I just want to make things conducive and work for everybody. Please don't feel that if you are on the short end of this, feeling like we're trying to short end or run around or stop your project, that was the intent. It wasn't at all. It isn't the intent. It never has been, never will be. Those projects are dear to Monterey, and what's dear to Monterey is at least dear to me. So that's where I stand on this as I sit here and sniffle. Over and out.
So I think before, just to respond to Scott and Susan, I would hope, as far as identifying other potential overages, that we should be able to do that. Obviously, fuel is a very important account, and it keeps the town running. If, we should look at, if we are to call a special town meeting for January, we should look at accounts like fuel and see if they might need more funds before the end of the year. I think there's other accounts where we might have, okay, it ran out and that's all we had, but fuel is not an account that we can, not an account that can happen to. So speaking to the overages, the possible and likely overages on the ARPA projects, I think that's something, at least personally, I would never put to special town meeting. It just doesn't feel right. Like, let's say, for instance, we allocated 85 for a project and we got a bid, the lowest bid back is 100. I would never personally bring 15 to special town meeting. I would think that would be an annual town meeting thing, to bring to in May. So, but I think fuel is something that is worth calling a special town meeting for because it's the nuts and bolts of the government and we'd shut down, we wouldn't be able to function without it. So I would feel.
We need the roads, we need the roads functioning.
So I would prefer, it goes with what I said earlier, but I would prefer calling a special town meeting sooner, because Scott said it kind of gives us the option of, do we pony up sooner or later? I would say, let's leave the ARPA projects, we allocate what we allocate to them, if there's a shortfall, we'll take it up at annual town meeting, when I feel it's appropriate, that's at least how I would do it. And call the completely legitimate special town meeting for a very important account that unfortunately ran dry way before we wanted it to. And was it an oversight of the select board and finance committee? It was. We did make an effort. We did actually increase the fuel budget for the first time, to my understanding, in a long time, and it just wasn't nearly enough.
In fairness, the diesel rate spiked in May. And our meeting was at the beginning of May.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think anybody thought that the price of diesel fuel would nearly double, which is what it did, right? And you know, and even if it did, I can't imagine that we would have thought at that point in May, oh, well, it's gonna stay there, right? But here we are, so.
So that, I mean, that's where my thought process is at, is let's call it a special town meeting. I know they have a stigma, but it's completely legitimate. We need fuel, we have the funds and free cash and stabilization. Let's take care of that aspect of the town to keep it running. And then if there's overages in the ARPA projects, we can take those up at annual town meeting, because I would never personally put those on a special town meeting warrant.
I
Yeah.
agree with you on having to do it at annual, and yeah, maybe it will turn out that there are overages. My gut says building projects always take more, not less, so it's not personal to any particular building project, it's just my experience of every building project. I'm okay with that. Where would we have I'm gonna assume we gotta do it indoors, it's just too cold otherwise.
I'm gonna start calling on the public
Go for it.
in just a minute, Michelle. I would think either in the fire station as it was previously held, if we can communicate with them, probably not outside. We've held the last couple in October and November outside, but probably we would ask to use the fire station. Church basement here, I guess the church basement's kind of taken up at this point.
Fire station's fine.
Fire station's fine from the fire chief, Sean. So, members of the public, I'd seen Sean had his hand up, and then Lori, Tom, and Michelle.
So there are a couple things. One is, being that I was in that position, Chief Sean Tryon here speaking. Being in Jim's position for multiple years prior, Melissa and I had tried to raise up that fuel budget for the last few years. It never got raised up. It should have been close to 30 years ago. So that's a lack of planning ahead. And that was previous boards here and committees. That being said, the fire department, my budgets, I have about $7,000 left not many people know this yet, but we have a truck out of service. It's at the repair shop. We're looking at a $6,000 bill to fix that. So that leaves me $1,000 to get through the rest of the year. There's a list of other things that need to be repaired up there at this point. Couple things that are out of service. We're holding off on to see where things go. So that might help, that might hurt your special town meeting. So I just want to throw that out there that I'm gonna be short with the fire department. No doubt. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
It would be good to have a as solid idea of what the other budgetary needs are, like how much can you solidly predict you're going to need to make up the shortfall? Is it just the cost of the unexpected repair, or
Yeah,
so
We
that we
would've
can
been
have really
okay
good
with-
numbers when we go in there, yeah.
it wouldn't have been great, but we might have got away with without this repair, so that's that.
Thanks, Sean. Melissa, before we move down the order of public, can you please, I think if Susan and Scott agree, I think if we could send out, because prices are inflated, email to all departments and see, we're almost halfway through the year. We may gain some clarity as far as a special town meeting later on in this meeting, but we may or may not call a special town meeting for January or February. Can you please let us know anything that you're aware of that might
Be a significant shortfall.
we might want to consider? And like, we may gain some clarity if we're not calling a special town meeting for the fuel, but there may be other things, and it'd just be really good to know at this point in the year, from each department, please.
Maybe having a 6-month check-in on budgets as a general thought, even if budgets are good, wouldn't be a bad thing for departments to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, we would
They may
like
do
a
it.
negative, or if they say, okay, we don't predict any shortfalls, that would be good information too.
That
Just so
would
we
be
don't get
happy
blindsided.
information.
Yeah. Lori Shaw.
Yes, Laura Shaw, I'm the chair of the Monterey Community Center Committee. I would just like to thank Justin for his proposal to have a special town meeting for this. And I feel that the tone of the other select board meetings select board members, has changed quite a bit in the past week. I very carefully watched the videotape of last week's meeting and was horrified at what felt like a profound lack of respect to both of the committees that were going to, as you said, Justin, have their funding reneged. And that was really what it felt like, not just being reallocated. So I'm very pleased to hear that in the past week, while everybody's had some time to think about it, there has been what sounds like a change of heart. I don't think that anybody would at all question a special town meeting because of increased fuel prices, because we're all dealing with increased fuel prices. That's just the reality. But I think that taking money away from projects that have already been allocated is really not an appropriate way to go. And I appreciate your rethinking on this matter.
I just wanna let you know that I didn't look at the film, but I just wanna correct any misapprehension. I always wanted to support both projects, and if I said something that indicated otherwise, I apologize, in a given moment. My support of a special town meeting might be a little different today than it was last week, cause I really do feel the stigma of it, but I fully intended then and now that whatever, if we did borrow from that pocket, to do whatever we could to replace that money, because it was really just a short-term solution to avoid the special town meeting. I never thought we should take it away from those projects, so if I implied otherwise from something I said, it was unintentional.
Thank
Tom Mency, and then Michelle.
Tom Mency from the Parks Commission. In response to the stigma, as you mentioned, when you go back to the residents of town and describe why there's a special town meeting, I don't think anybody can really come up and say, this is mismanagement. You had no idea that the costs of diesel fuel were gonna skyrocket. So put that aside. I think the majority of people are gonna accept that. Then another statement that you made, Susan, that the applications were not complete. I think the community center does a heck of a job. And I can speak for the Parks Commission because we went through that application and answered everything you asked for. Everything. And the estimate that's there includes the engineering, the design. It includes the purchase of the material. And because we're dealing with an architect that's registered and certified in the state of Massachusetts, we get a 20% discount. It includes the delivery and it includes the installation, as well as the new ground cover. The only thing we're up against that might change, and I was informed of this by the supplier, price increases. But we're getting 20% off to begin with. So you tell me where we were lacking in our application.
I don't think that you were lacking in your application. I think what I wish I had understood better is the state rules that you have to go through. So for example, I believe that there's some dispensation because in playgrounds, the designers and the installers are the same. You have to go through a different set of rules, right? Normally, something like that would have to go, you have two choices, a request for bid or RFPs. But even with RFPs, there's this background thing where it has to be multiple bids, not just a single one, right? So, if I had it to do over, knowing what I know now, I would have come to both of you and said, okay, we have to figure out which of these processes would have been the right thing. And we have to plan for that. But I didn't know, right? Because you're dealing with an inexperienced municipal administrator, right? It's the hazard of having elected office. And I feel bad, because I feel like if I had known that, we could have had that conversation how many months ago? Right? You didn't know, I didn't know. And so for me, that feels like my failure. I'm not blaming you. I feel like I wish I had understood all of the hoops that were there, so we could have been better prepared to give you guys advice, so that we could be in a good place. That's all. I'm not blaming you guys. You didn't know and neither did I. And you're all volunteers. I mean, I'm getting $5,000, woohoo! But it's a learning process, and I hate that those mistakes cost us time and energy and frustration. That's all I'm frustrated with myself, not with you. Does that make sense to you, Tom?
I understand where you're coming from. While I have the floor, I'd also like to bring up a couple of other points. As part of the application process, we were given reference to the proper use of American Rescue Plan funds, okay? And to do some creative bookkeeping and number crunching, like I saw you folks doing on the YouTube that I watched. I mean, it was commendable, but was totally wrong. You can't take cookies from that cookie jar that you're not supposed to touch for, even if it's an interim balancing of some shortfalls elsewhere. It's clearly designated in those guidelines what you're supposed to use that money for. And I'm sure glad that the town of Monterey is coming around and seeing that, because I think if you did, the whole town would be up for some criticism, and maybe even something beyond criticism. Maybe you have and maybe you haven't, but I've heard of various municipalities getting called up for the inappropriate use of ARPA funds.
Scott,
I'm done.
Scott, were you trying to speak up?
Not quite yet, but soon.
Okay, alright, let me know when you do.
You'll
I
know.
kind, I want to, second Susan's sentiment in a way that if I approved the pavilion project and the playground project, knowing that we had to go through a formal procurement process, and approve them on the basis that we hadn't gone through that process yet, and we didn't have a bid sitting in front of us, but estimates had been solicited, and so that was a good ballpark number. In hindsight, it could have been better to do a two-step process, where we first accepted proposals and then used a much smaller amount of funds to seek out engineering, and then actually do the procurement, and then after the procurement, allocate the rest of the funds. I think since we've done it the way that we've done it at this point, I would like personally to continue down the path. I think we kind of committed to doing the procurement and then finding how the bids come back. And then if we have to cover an overage, we'll ask town meeting to do so. But in hindsight, a two-step process would have been better. That wasn't your decision. That was the select board's decision. I'm also new and young, and so I was, in hindsight's 20/20. I would have done it differently, absolutely.
Maybe 2030.
Michelle Miller.
Hello, I'm Michelle Miller, I'm here representing the Finance Committee, sort of.
Well, are you or aren't you?
Well, I'm gonna try and not let any Michelle Miller speak in here. As you know, and as I stated previously, I believe it was November 2nd, we were at a meeting. And at that time, the Finance Committee was urging the Select Board to hold off on making any decision because we felt as though any decision was gonna have an impact on the capital plan, which we were very diligently working on formulating, not to mention the fact that we're all working on this capital policy. And that there are some very important things in the capital policy, which I think we are virtually agreed on, I know the Finance Committee is, that might have prevented all of this confusion. Because we would have in place a situation where we would have helped people discuss, decide, discover all of these hoops that we're now having to discover. So that being said, we spent quite a bit of time the other night talking about this issue. And it really, I'm just gonna read verbatim, I believe Frank said most of this. We understand that because neither the pavilion nor the playground projects can be started until fully planned and funded, the money is available. In any case, I mean, in your bank account. In any case, the projects will have to come before town meeting to receive additional funds. We have until 2024 to spend this money. Moving forward, we feel we should consider these projects as capital projects and include them in the capital plan for that funding and evaluate them in that context. We would expect applicants always to follow guidelines in the capital policy and work with town boards and the procurement officer. We unanimously supported the reorganizing of the ARPA funds in order to fund the fuel account because I believe that there's a special dispensation that permits it and would not make us legally in the wrong to do that. And it's just, as I understand it, the projects are in play, the process of finalizing plans, the money would still be there or allocated for all the planning necessary. But since when, for example, a proposal, what are we gonna consider the bids?
Bids
Yeah.
or RFPs.
So when the bids come in, then we'll know what we're talking about, but really until then, and that would definitely have to be at a town meeting. but it doesn't, it's not like anything's gonna change. The money's there, and if we borrow it, then we'll put it back. Or, I mean, if there's a commitment to these projects to fund them at the level that is gonna be required, that's a decision that the town meeting does have the right to make. So I think, you're gonna spend money on the planning, and that's what has to happen next. I hope that makes sense to everybody.
Scott, Jensen, did you want to speak up yet, or?
No, like I say, when I'm ready, you'll know. I'm good. I'm listening. Everybody
Jerry
so far.
Jerry Connor from the Parks Commission. If the select board decides to take this money from the ARPA funds and use it for the fuel, then I would like the select board at this meeting to commit that they will give the community center and the Parks Commission their full amount that was approved for their projects. And that it won't come down to another meeting where they say, well, we were gonna give you 80, but now we're gonna give you 60. So we would like a commitment that you will fully fund the two projects if you decide that you wanna take this money from ARPA.
I just wanna point out, Jerry, we never actually had the money to fully fund both projects.
Wait,
We never did.
yeah, pause on one thing, because we don't have the bids.
Right, but,
If we had the bids, it'd be a different situation.
but you did approve
To answer-
80,000 for each
To
project.
answer your point, Jerry, unfortunately, if the select board takes away these ARPA funds, there's no way that this select board can guarantee that we'll get you the money back.
Not from ARPA, we're talking about from
It
the
can
town.
It can only come from town meeting.
Yes,
So we can't guarantee that.
but you would put it up in the
We could
town
guarantee to
meeting
put it on-
as an item.
We could guarantee to put on the warrant, but that's why I think the way that I'm proposing to do it makes the most sense, because the select board has sole jurisdiction over ARPA funds. And we went through a year-long process of accepting rolling applications, maybe not a full year, but the better part of a year, accepting rolling applications, funding a couple projects, putting out applications, getting them back, reviewing all of them. And those funds, only the select board has jurisdiction over. And so to not muddy the two waters, what I would do is ask special town meeting for the fuel funds to fund the nuts and bolts of the town government from the million plus in free cash and stabilization, and keep what the select board allocated, how we allocated our ARPA funds, because there's no other way. I mean, we can tell you we'll put on the warrant, but
I agree with what
I would
you're
like to
saying.
keep the two separate. And as far as dealing with overages, deal with them once we have bids and once we know what we're talking about. Is it gonna be a $10,000 overage? Is it gonna be $50,000? There's no way to know until we have bids. We'd be in a much different spot if we had bids.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that we should go forward with a special town meeting. Should we pick a date? I mean, unless Scott disagrees.
I don't disagree. I'm just surprised that so many people have such a strong ego in this. We were never trying to shortchange anybody. I mean, you make it sound like we're taking your grandparents away. The whole plan was just to find a way to make things easier on everybody, not harder. We fully supported, if you listen to last week's minutes, we fully supported every one of us, and we always have and always will, all of these projects. We're just trying to find a way to make it as simple as possible to get the money to flow, to get these things to happen, knowing that there was going to have to be a town meeting for whatever funds were dispersed above the amount that was given to us for ARPA. It still is the fact. So please don't think that we're out here trying to screw anybody out of anything. It's just a matter of figuring out, is it today, is it a month from now, or is it in May that we ask for the money? So listen, I'm all set to go to a special town meeting. Let's ask for anything that we need, and this is it. Apparently the people in town hall right tonight are irritated, so let's calm them down. It's too close to Hanukkah, too close to Christmas to have any type of just nonsense floating around. We got enough of that going on politically throughout the world. Let's make Monterey a little more harmonious. Agree that we'll go to town. We'll have an annual or we'll have a special town meeting in January. We can all get together, maybe have some cocoa, approve all of this money expenditures, and chill out, knowing that we really have your back. And all we want is just for you guys to understand that it's a work in progress. I'm a carpenter. Justin's a farmer. Our dear friend Sue Cooper is a professor.
Biologist.
None of us are professionals at what we all do in town hall. We're all just trying to figure it out. It's like a pinball game. Things get bounced around off of us and off of every board. And thank God we have people in this town that have decided to come forward and work hard for very little, if no pay. And, the hell with the people that came into this town hall and decided to play hell and make the town pay for that. So I'll never stop saying that. But I think that this board has nothing but the best in our minds and in our views for what all of you want. And Mickey Jervis called me today and she asked, please make certain that my letter is read in public. So I have to ask that if somebody has whatever she wrote, please write it or I'll be damned forever.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna do that quickly. Number one, letter, and then I'm gonna propose an idea. This is to the select board from Mickey Jervis. I am strongly opposed to using ARPA funds for items that are normally on the town budget at a town meeting. ARPA funds should be, and it was previously agreed that they would be, used for town projects that fall outside the normal budget. Projects that are for the good of the town, but for which we would not have the funds within our normal budget. Support of the town playground and the community center pavilion are both very worthwhile projects and impact often forgotten members of our community. It seems that the Parks Commission and the community center get the short end of the stick when it comes to funding. The highway department will get their fuel paid for. There is no reason to take gifted funds to fill a budget shortfall. All right, given what Susan said and Scott said, I would propose that we look at dates of Saturday, January 14th or Saturday, January 21st at 1:30 p.m. The past few specials we've done have been Saturdays at 1:30, so we don't need to do that. It just seems to work. We should check with the clerk and the moderator and the venue host if we're gonna hold it in the firehouse. And in the meanwhile, like tomorrow morning, Melissa could please reach out to department heads to get a sense of what else may need to go on the special town meeting warrant. I think we're all in agreement. We don't want to ask for things that we don't need, but figure out what we do need. Mid-year, it's like a half-year check-in, and everyone knows that fuel and other items have gone through the roof lately. That would be my proposal.
I'll second it, but we need to find out which date's gonna work, but let's just,
Yeah.
I think it makes the most sense to do it.
Scott, does that work for you for moving forward?
Well, let me just be the fly in the ointment. You made a proposal and not a motion. So other than
I
that.
didn't make a motion. I didn't
Okay.
make a motion only because
That's correct.
I don't
That's all
really
I'm
have a
saying.
solid, yeah, I don't have a
I agree.
solid date.
Okay. I am in agreement and compliance that we should ask the town for everything going forward, ever.
So should we try and set a date next week, once we have that?
Yeah, so what I
Yeah,
think,
find out.
what we usually do is we'll set a couple, I think Saturdays at 1:30.
Do you see Kyle? She has her hand.
I do see Kyle Pierce. Hi, Kyle Pierce. Is this about scheduling a special town meeting?
Yes. The 14th is part of a holiday weekend. I just don't know if that's the best idea. That's all.
Okay, that's not a good idea. Okay.
So let's go with the 20. Should we do, does that mean do we need a second date? Do we need to consider
Yeah, we
21,
should.
28?
Yeah, 28
Is
we
that
could
gonna,
do.
is that gonna be a problem for, I hate to say this, by paying bills? Can we hold off that? Do we have net 90 or what's the deal with that?
Well, since the weather's coming into this week,
As soon as possible, Justin.
we charge snow and ice, so
Okay.
we at least got it for free for 1 week.
So the 21st, we could hope that the 21st works. The clerk would kind of be the linchpin here. The moderator is generally available Saturday at 1:30 PM.
It's good to have the inside track on something.
And
What is-
then it would. What's that, Scott?
I'm sorry. Acid reflux.
Okay. And then that would also give us technically, if we needed it, until January 4th to finalize the warrant, which would be a couple more meetings. It'd be nice to get it done as soon as possible, but it depends what requests. I mean, I think we did a pretty good job. No one likes to have to call 2 special town meetings in 1 year, but I think we did a good job at keeping the last one fairly limited.
And short.
We are gonna have a big question next week about the Hume case. Donna's gonna come in to discuss that. What's that, Scott?
Justin, the actual date that we set the meeting is kind of moot as to the rest of the people sitting in front of us, or at least you two tonight. So we can always choose that later on tonight after some people get to go home, or public input as to Wagwan.
Okay,
Which is
all right, so let's tentatively.
The town clerk is available on the 21st.
All right, so I move that we tentatively call a special town meeting for Saturday, January 21st at 1:30 PM at the firehouse, assuming that everyone is available, to cover the fuel overage and other unforeseen expenses that the select board may become aware of in the next couple weeks.
Second.
Is there any other?
Second.
All right. We'll call a vote.
Yes.
Aye. See. Yes.
And yeah, so that's unanimous approval. So that's what we'll do going forward. And we're gonna check in with all the departments, see where other overages may lie. We should think about stabilization fund or free cash. We should think about asking the finance committee for advisory opinions on anything that we're gonna put on the warrant. And I think that's it. It gives us till the 4th. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The second,
I
Yeah.
hope you guys can all,
Just,
sorry.
I'm
yes, Scott.
not, if I could just have a moment of, our fine citizenry's here, as this
Please do.
holiday season approaches, Hanukkah's coming up on Monday, the 19th, and of course, Christmas on Sunday. I just really hope and pray that everybody in Monterey takes a deep breath, looks up at the sky at night and sees this incredible moon that we've been watching, and just takes a minute and realizes that we're here in Monterey, and this is one of the greatest locations you could ever want to be, and be thankful for it, and know that we're not trying to do anything devious. We want everybody's back, and we pray for you all, and we love you all, and we love Monterey. So go in peace, and just try to give us some trust and some room. It's been a rocky road for these two, and we're going to do it all, and we'll do it together. So let's just be Monterey strong.
What
you.
he said.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Alright.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas,
Good night.
happy
Thank you.
holidays.
Happy holidays, whichever one you celebrate.
Okay.
Celebrate them all.
Hey, you know what? I celebrate the return of light, right? Let's go with Yule. It was a stolen holiday anyway.
So the next item of business is the structure of the building department. I confirmed with Donna, and she is, She is adamant that the select board or its designee, the town administrator, the building commissioner, can oversee the inspector of wires and assign alternate if need be. And she gives us a draft motion to delegate the supervision and management of the inspectors. I know that we've talked before, we wanna get some input from the two inspectors that would technically have their supervisor changed. Now that we're fairly certain that we can do this, who wants to reach out to the inspectors? Any takers?
I feel like this is a hot potato being handed to your left. I'll run with it.
Okay, so you'll call.
I would like to, just this, I would like to have the ammo that I'm gonna need from Senorita Donna.
Yeah, I think if you come to town hall, it's sitting in your email inbox, I think, but if you come to town hall, we got it printed out for you, and
Okay.
it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear.
I did not.
And, you know,
I just so you know, I did not have anything from Donna as of today. Email.
No, it wasn't straight to you. It was, she sent it
Okay.
to me and then I forwarded it to you this afternoon, I think. But, it seems pretty clear. I actually went and looked myself, and I think it would be a creative interpretation to read. I mean, no one is not accountable to someone, but.
Guess it's
Well,
powerful.
Bob Dylan said it. You gotta serve somebody.
Okay, so, and then, I mean, they can disagree, they can agree, at least we will all be on the same page before we do it, so they don't find out after the fact. And maybe what they say changes our mind too, but I think legally we can do it.
Okay, can we invite the whole soiree in for a Wednesday, maybe at noon meeting, like our first in January? They would, I can't guarantee they'll be there, but I would imagine they may be more apt to show up at a noon meeting than a 6 or 7 at night meeting.
Well, you know what would actually work well to get the building commissioner would probably be a Tuesday or Thursday meeting in the evening, but he might be able to do remote. I just think he's typically.
How about I do this? Let me get a hold of Don and let Don and I and Don maybe be able to contact those two guys, and we can all come in at one time, and we'll notify you back as a member of the board. I'll talk to the TA, and we'll put that towards your agenda.
Okay, so this is gonna be Scott's baby.
Thank you for that, Scott.
Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna guarantee you now it won't happen until after the first of the year.
Okay.
It's not like it's emergent, right? This is something that should happen, but I think that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I know it isn't. It's too close. It's just too close.
Yeah.
Okay, so Scott will get back to us. Thank you, Scott.
Sure.
So the next thing is the police chief contract,
Mm-hmm.
which I think the only way to work through this is going to be to examine, so Donna did have some additions and comments. Length of contract, I think she just added extension beyond June 30, 2023 will require a new contract. I thought that was assumed, but good.
Not bad to say.
She added, if we go to compensation, the chief of police, an FLSA and Massachusetts Wage Act exempt position. And she changed a little bit of the wording there. So then do we know about the 13 weeks from Brian? Okay.
What do they pertain to?
Well, they pertain to on call at night. shifts. And it
Yeah.
was written as 13 weeks covered by him, 13 weeks covered by someone else, but I thought that they were rotating amongst the three of them, so I thought he would have a third of the shifts rather than half, but I don't really know, I just wanted to check.
Well, what are we checking for? Are we micromanaging the shift? And if that's
Nope,
what it is, then okay.
If he says if he says it's gonna be 13 and 13, that's what we'll do, but if it's gonna be 9 and whatever else that would leave, or whatever it may be, I just want it to be accurate in here.
We wanted to correctly reflect what his actual plan is. Because the contract got drawn from a previous contract and may not accurately reflect Brian's plan.
Yeah. So the man to ask is
That's
the
why we
man in
wanted you
blue.
to tell us. Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, right. Brian has to be the guy who does that.
So that's something we need to reach out to Brian on. Donna wrote about the rate, the on-call pay. She said, just FYI, typically all chiefs are deemed to be on call 24/7, and that is taken into account in setting a salary. They do not typically get something above the salary for being on call at night.
Ooh.
So, what's that?
Ooh.
I said, ooh.
Yeah, so obviously we don't want to take pay away from someone that we may have already agreed to. But I guess her point being, if you have a salaried employee, all of their pay should be reflected in their salary. So I don't know if that's something that we want to change now or at the beginning next fiscal year. I'd be curious where the $100 per week and $100 per week is in the budget, because it's already in the chief account. We should just incorporate right into the salary.
No, it's in, I believe he's getting it out of the, part-time.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a minute budget line item. It's not even a line item. It's a line item in like the police department's paperwork that they do, and then come up with the final sheet that they give to us. You know?
Well, and the other problem that I could foresee is the other part-time officers are not actually they are salaried, but they don't have a contract, but they're hourly. So we would still, in theory, want to give them the on-call, bonus. So, stipend, bonus, not a bonus, a stipend. So we would have to do it in such a way that it is obviously and apparently fair, but maybe it makes sense to build in the stipend right into the salary rather than have it separate.
Well, that's kind of what I was just about to suggest, is that there's too many loose ends that need to try to be thought up and figured out. And perhaps the way to approach this is just say maybe any officer that works for us is salaried, and this is what you're expected, and this is what the pay is, and these are what the benefits are, and this is the handbook. I don't know if that could work.
And I
But
can
just-
honestly say, I'm not certain, but sometimes people actually do prefer to have it as a special stipend. I mean, for whatever reason, people have different reasons for preferring it, and I don't know that that's true here, right? But if it's the same amount of money to the town, I think it's two separate cases. Because if chiefs are considered to have that on-call expectation, we might want to specifically, since we have a contract and a salary, roll that into the chief's salary, but it may be different for other full-time officers. I'm not saying it should be, I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility. But it may be that the officers would prefer to have it specifically designated as a stipend for that. I don't know.
I think the solution that I was headed toward was more so incorporating the on-call pay
Into
stipend
yeah.
into the chief's
Salary.
salary,
Right,
but leave it for the
full-time officer.
full-time officers who are not salary.
Right, I was agreeing with you.
Yeah. Let's look into that, because it also depends in part on how many weeks. I mean, if we were to know what needs to be incorporated in salary, we would need to know how many weeks
Right.
the chief is expecting to do the on-call at night.
So what would happen if one of the part-time officers wasn't able to do it and Brian had to take it over and you only have so many weeks budgeted into his salary?
I mean, I think that's part of the confusion here. I mean, that gets confusing quickly.
I think that's why it's been separated now, because like, when the current chief.
Well, don't let it confuse you. We have some work to do on it, and understand that, and we'll move forward with it somehow.
Okay, so we're gonna highlight that as something that we gotta come back to, the next
Yeah,
time we look at this.
maybe.
More.
Believe me, you'll find week to week to week that they get kicked down the road. It's not that each week something doesn't develop on the subject, but they do find themselves going sometimes week after week after week, as you must know. The agenda I'm talking about, that things just appear. So don't feel bad that we're pushing something down the road, because it just can't be figured out in one night.
I won't feel bad.
I'd have to call.
We'll put,
Good.
so we're gonna have to continue to work on this, but I just wanna go through, some more Donna changes and see if we're on board with them or whatnot. So she added, the chief of police agrees that that because this is his primary employment, he will not become employed in any position which would impact in an adverse manner upon this responsibility, or which would constitute a conflict of interest or violation of the ethics law. Is there any objection to that addition? Okay. Duties.
I don't think so.
Duties, she asked if we have officially accepted chapter 41, section 97. Or does the bylaw review committee know that?
Do they know?
We may not have asked
Or do you know? I just know they were digging through like what we've accepted, what's a bylaw.
They
Right, so
might,
I-
but I didn't think to ask him, I'm sorry.
Alright.
I'm still waiting for the
No.
state to get back.
No idea.
Bylaws we've accepted, but they don't keep track of.
And yeah.
Local
and-
acceptances,
right.
yeah. Okay, so that's something we're gonna come back to, maybe the bylaw review committee knows, we're gonna come back to that. She added a little bit of wording on number 6 in duties and property used by the police department. Which adds, instead of just belonging to the police department.
Great. Makes sense.
If we go to page 3, she deleted except when using sick or vacation time. I guess that's implied. And then, as far as compensatory time goes, this kind of goes back to the on-call thing. She said it's not standard to give a chief compensatory time. Then she kind of wrote something that sounds a little bit like compensatory time, but it's different. But the way she wrote it is, policing is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation. Because of the serious nature and sensitivity of the work, it is recognized that the duties of the chief of police will require that he schedule himself to work those hours necessary to accomplish the responsibilities of the position. These hours will require time outside of normal office hours, and as a result, the chief of police may adjust his normal office hours accordingly as he deems appropriate to provide a sufficient amount of time for personal leisure, taking into account the policing needs of the town.
I think it's pretty well worded. If Donna's comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. Any questions for you, Scott?
No, it hasn't changed in a long time.
Okay,
That's
so
the burden.
we'll go with that change. Insurance.
Do we know what the 3-part thing is? Do you know?
No.
So I think unless we find out otherwise, insurance is just going to change to liability limits of $1 million per occurrence, per time that it happens.
Right.
And 3 million annual aggregate per year.
And just the middle one goes away.
The middle one goes away. I don't think it would hurt to just use the wording that she says, even though I can't say it.
1 million per occurrence, 3 million annual aggregate.
Per year.
Yep.
That's
And
just a little.
That's a whatever those numbers reflect have been reviewed by somebody to see
Well,
if
that is
that's
what our,
enough, to see if it's
we should
the
know.
right policy, the enough policy, the wrong policy, just to make certain that, we're covered.
Yes, so Melissa, can you please check that with the insurance company? Thank you.
Yeah.
And if they
Just
know
make sure
why
that's
it's
the
1
right
million,
policy for the town, correct?
yes,
Mhm.
if they know why it's 1 million, 1 million, 3 million, please let us know. And if not, we'll just change it to Donna's wording, assuming that that is the policy that we have. She added an indemnification clause. I
Okay.
think it's standard. I don't have any questions about it.
Nor do I.
Neither.
Okay, we'll go with that. Professional development, she added reasonable expenses and as approved by the select board.
Which just flows well.
I don't have any problems with that. Automobile is the next section. So number one, an automobile was about the vehicle that the police chief uses that the town owns. And number two was about the police chief using his own vehicle. She said, I don't recommend that we give him a car and also allow him to use his private car. In all the contracts I've worked on, chiefs get one or the other. The only hang up I see is that the way that she words number one says the unrestricted and exclusive use by the chief. And I think sometimes in the police department, 1270 has not always been for the exclusive use of the chief.
Yeah, like if one's in the shop.
If one's in the shop. So what if, but I kind of agree, has the police chief ever used does he use his personal car for? We can check with Brian, but.
Maybe for driving somewhere, if like they were down a cruiser and they had to go to a training or something, he might take his personal car.
I mean, I could see taking my personal car, since it's, cruiser versus my car might get better mileage if I'm going to a training somewhere.
Yeah, the problem is for any call situation, the cruiser has things that a personal vehicle doesn't, and it also has town insurance and whatnot. And
I was
it might get
assuming,
messy.
yeah, I was
if someone
assuming that
responds.
wouldn't be for a call situation, but.
I know with the fire department, there's been a huge emphasis on not responding with personal vehicles,
Right.
even though that was very common for many years. But let's look into that.
Yeah, I'd like to postpone any kind of concept on that particular subject, the use of
Yeah.
a personal vehicle, but let's just look at it again next week when we all have eyes at the same table.
Melissa, can you please, while you're talking to the insurance company, run that by them and see what they think?
And maybe also ask Brian whether he thinks he would be, how he might be using his personal vehicle, if he would.
And we should also reword it, I think, to acknowledge that sometimes cruisers may be interchanged and not, bless you, may not be, it may not be unrestricted and exclusive use. Maybe one day we swap cruisers.
Except I don't think I think the idea of the, exclusive use is that the vehicle can't be used by somebody else. Not that it's exclusive to that vehicle, that's how I read it. Meaning, if the chief has it at home, his significant other
I
can't
see what you're
drive it,
saying.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
see what
think
you're
the
saying.
exclusive applies to only the chief drives it, not to, it has to be that car.
So we'll come back to that, because we have a couple questions. Discipline and discharge, I don't know why it's not coming up in track changes, but pretty much rewrote the whole thing.
I think that whole section was that, I don't know why it didn't come out in blue, but.
If anyone has any questions about that, have them ready for next week. I think it's
I didn't, I
standard.
read through it and it seemed to be the usual lawyerese.
Yeah. Vacation is just a changed heading, but nothing in the section changed.
Right.
Miscellaneous,
What about right before that, somebody took out.
That's the whole discipline section.
I
Oh,
think
okay, so
this
that's
was
part of
what
it,
we
okay.
had, and she replaced it with that. It's sort of backwards, so the blue was strike out mission all, then
And I-
blue, but isn't.
Yeah, so and I mean, the discipline and discharge is pretty, intricate or specific about the hearing and the potential hearings and whatnot. I assume it's all typical. Miscellaneous, so she added this one, we didn't think of, but I think it makes sense. The text in this agreement constitutes the entire agreement between the parties. There are no oral or external promises, representations, or understandings between the parties regarding employment of the chief of police by the town. Oh, you know what else changed, which I don't know which one up here?
What?
Oh, what you should look at in discipline and discharge is the last paragraph that she did add,
Should
which is
the
not
chief-
really about, it is discharge, but it's about if the chief ends the contract or the town ends the contract. That's just something I noticed. You know, there has to be prior notice given,
Right.
depending on the circumstances.
Yeah,
Um,
which seems very reasonable given the importance of the position, like to have someone leave spontaneously would be pretty problematic.
yes,
So it's 365 days for
which
retirement.
is the whole contract.
This contract, but I think not the next one probably, right? For retirement, so it's not really applicable to this contract, but that's okay.
But, or a lesser amount of
And
time.
90 days if he's just leaving.
Yeah.
But let's face it,
Protected
could we
term.
hire a new one in less than 90 days? No, we probably couldn't.
So, and then notices, so this is just another legal thing.
Where-
Notice, the last number 2 in miscellaneous, notices pursuant to this agreement shall be given either by USPS, first class mail, certified mail, or by email. Just that way no one says, hey, you wrote something on a napkin and changed the contract.
Could we also make it chair of the select board instead of chairman?
Yes, yeah, I think that'd be good.
I know it's stupid, but it bugs me.
No, but we've always been consistent about
I
that.
don't know.
That's good. So, well, and then we don't wanna make the address public, so let's,
Oh,
to avoid having to do erroneous, censoring, let's not put the address in until we're like ready to sign it, right?
okay.
And, okay, are we comfortable with where we're at, what we need to look into for next week, and what we've accepted of Donna's changes?
I am.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we'll come back to it next week, and we'll have answers hopefully from insurance, from Brian, and more time to think on some of the other clauses. Okay.
Yeah.
Capital planning.
New business, review draft, capital planning policy and procedures. So I took a stab at this, well, I took an attempt at this,
So that's just yours, I think.
And-
This is-
and
Just
Sue-
That's just Susan.
Susan took an
Oh,
attempt at
okay.
it.
I'm gonna try to.
So
So-
the orange is you and the blue is me? Or both of us in some cases? There's a lot of orange, and I think, cause
The
what I
orange
did
is
was,
definitely you.
no, cause I took yours that had the orange on it, that's why it made me blue.
But it changes color. Susan, did you make, it looks like,
No,
Melissa
most of
made a
this was
couple
already
edits.
there, and these are the ones I
Justin,
made.
whereabouts are you now?
capital planning policy and procedure, sorry, I didn't announce it.
Okay, so
I don't
I'm
know if
actually coming up as red, which is weird.
I don't know if you have a copy with you, but it's not gonna be ready to vote on tonight by any means.
Okay.
Yeah, you're Susan.
Yeah,
Um,
blue.
That is weird, I don't know why it's doing
Cause
that.
I took what I did was, I took the one you sent that had your changes on it, and I put in with track changes on it, so when I made changes, it just added mine in. I don't know why,
That's-
so I'm
That's
pretty sure I looked at
12/7
this out of my computer.
So maybe I'm just gonna print yours.
Okay,
Justin,
that's fine.
because-
What's
Yeah.
that, Scott?
Go for it.
12/7, I have a spreadsheet.
Okay,
You know what,
I don't have his.
everyone forget all the track changes stuff, I mean, I kinda just took another attempt at it, and maybe you can look at it this week and see if it's something, I mean, I tried to get rid of all the extra wording and cut to the chase. So like the policy part of it is 3 paragraphs. Most of them are 1 or 2, they're all 1 or 2 sentences. It just goes like this. The select board and finance committees, with the help of the town administrator, shall keep a capital plan which projects significant purchases that the town is expected to make in the next 20 years. All items owned by the town worth more than $10,000 replacement value and expected to be replaced within the next 20 years shall be reflected in the capital plan. Items include vehicles, equipment, machinery, replaceable aspects of buildings, roof, boilers, etc. The capital plan shall guide the town in its management of the general stabilization fund, loans, and other financing options. Capital purchases and their related funding sources should be coordinated to fulfill the needs of the town while maintaining a steady and limited impact on required tax revenue. Then the procedures is basically what,
Oh, this is Justin.
how the project is built, how the capital plan is built, and the mindset or the framework under which it's revised. I copy and pasted a lot of the things that were included, or not copy and pasted, but edited the things that were included in here. But just tried to cut it down because, you know, this one that we were given had a bullet pointed thing here. And then it had, you know, these procedures and then the rating system. And I just cut it down. Mine's a page and a half. I don't know, maybe I cut out things people liked. I tried to cut out redundancies and keep the general gist of it. And I got rid of any ranking system where things are gonna be given a grade, like it's an RFP. I don't know how people feel about that. I tried to keep the general ideas of what people felt was important, the need, the upfront cost, the long-term effect, the timeline, alternative solutions, alternative funding sources, and then the priority classification. So public safety and health, infrastructure needs, quantity of use, efficiency of services, legal requirements, personal impact, service impact, administrative needs. But I don't wanna rush this. If we wanna go back to the old one, we're welcome to.
I'd at least like to look at this and compare them and see what I think.
I just felt bogged down by the other
Yeah.
one, but.
And I do like their idea of there's sort of 3 categories, I think is not bad. But I don't know what the most efficient way to include that is.
So their 3 categories were fiscally prudent,
Administratively
which I think would
efficient.
be your upfront costs and your long-term effect, right? And then your administratively efficient. I mean, the problem is I don't see how that's all different because fiscally prudent is about how much it costs up front, how it affects the operating budget, how long it's gonna last, when it's gonna need to be replaced.
What? What, Scott?
No, nothing. I haven't said a word.
Okay.
Sorry.
It might have been a bad.
I don't know how to separate. You know, and I took out things like public support. I just don't feel like that's, if we're considering. I mean, it's a given that, like, if we wanna go to town and ask $1 million to help fund the culvert, we have to keep in mind, is it even gonna pass town meeting, but,
That's fair. I see.
you know, I think that's a given. Oh, sorry, guys.
Just gave me a heart attack, but I totally understand, that's okay. And for one thing, you often don't know public support until you're in front of the public.
Yeah,
I mean, you can try and.
I similarly got rid of budgetary constraints because that should be an upfront cost, like estimated cost of the project. And delineated by category. I don't know, why don't we,
Yeah.
why don't you and
let me
Scott
look at it
take the
over the
week and Melissa, and do you wanna go back to the old one or do you wanna go with mine?
Or some combination thereof, I'm okay with that.
Susan, you wanna spearhead that?
Sure, I will absolutely do that. Thanks for putting in that much thought into it, that's great.
Alright, Susan's gonna,
And are we also, and we're also gonna try and deal with the other one, my brain just left.
yes, I thought that was supposed to be the finance committee's, baby at this point, but I don't know that they think the same. So we could look at it, I did look at your edits that you had given us at the last joint meeting. And I think it'd be worth us discussing them. We could come to our conclusion and then kick it to the finance committee, because I don't know if they're ever gonna, what their deal is.
That's okay, and I don't know how crucial having these policies is, but I can definitely say that thinking through the concepts is useful for me.
Yeah.
Especially as we're like headed into the budget process to be thinking about those things, so I actually appreciate the conversation, no matter what happens to the policy itself.
Yeah. All right, so Susan is going to be the point person for the capital plan policy and procedures, come back to us next week, and that's how we're gonna deal with that. The next item on the agenda is a memo to the Lake Garfield Working Group, and I drafted a memo to Lake Garfield Working Group just because I want a little bit more clarity. I think, at least last year, it was thrown around the select board and the finance committee, and ultimately it was a citizen petition. We were actually given an interesting history of this figure. I think it's been on the town meeting warrant for something like 5 or 8 years or somewhere in between. And some years it goes on, not as a citizen petition, but with disapproval from both the select board and the finance committee, which is bizarre.
It is bizarre,
It-
then it gets passed every year, so.
But anyway, so we need to decide as a select board and work with the finance committee and see, another thing that was brought up last year is, should it become a line item in the budget rather than a special article each year? If it's gonna be an expense each year. And I thought that this would be a good way to gain some more clarity. I just wrote, do you want me to read it for you, Scott?
No, I think it's a great idea
Okay.
that it may become a line item. We have to protect ourselves, and one of the ways we do that is to keep our lake beautiful and pristine. It would be great if the state would help us a little bit, but down the road maybe.
Yeah. Any changes, Susan?
Probably need to remove the word from in the second sentence. At the annual town meeting of May 2022, the town voted to appropriate
Yeah,
$50,000
I had from
to pay
free
for it.
cash.
Yeah, that's fine.
Alright, so we'll delete from. So,
And I think all your questions are good.
And I know everyone on this committee is a volunteer, and I'm not trying to
No,
unduly
just trying to
burden
get a
them,
heads
but
up.
yeah, and they're
I
an
get it.
advisory committee of the select board. And last year we got an advisory opinion too late, too little backup to really make an informed decision.
We're just trying to make sure that everybody's on track to give us the information we need to make responsible decisions. That's all, right? And I think it makes sense, just like checking in with departments halfway through the year to see what's happening with budgets, right? It's actually timely because it coordinates with them having to look at their budget for the next fiscal year, right? So it's not, I don't think you're rude or anything, we're just asking them to make sure they're thinking about this, so when they come to us for the next town meeting, we have everything we need to know, right? It's good.
So I would move that we approve the memo to the Lake Garfield Working Group regarding the fiscal year 24 budgeting, with the one change of deleting from after 50,000 in the second sentence.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Call a vote,
Yes.
yes.
I'm just gonna abstain because I don't have the paperwork to actually just read what it says. But
Understood. Alright, so we'll sign.
it carries without my vote anyway, so go ahead, have a great day.
We know we have your support in spirit.
Alright,
Yeah, for certain.
do you have any town administrator items?
I do not.
Okay, review mail and correspondence. Is there any mail and correspondence anyone wants to bring up that we haven't? No, alright, Minutes. 12/6. Yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't be here to sign it anyway, so.
Number 1, finalize capital policy and procedures. There's an erroneous those.
Where are we?
Number 1,
No, where's
finalize capital.
where's the those?
This.
Right,
Yeah.
Just, so you know, I did go through and everywhere where you guys changed like select word capital, I
Thank you.
I automatically just approved those.
Thank you.
Maybe you can do select board with a capital S
Wait,
and B
would you
going
agree that
forward
the
and finance
select
committee, because then
board
they won't
will
have to
work
correct
on
them.
it?
And 2 words. And
This
actually,
policy.
in most
To this
towns,
policy?
or technically in Mass General Law's Board of Selectmen, Monterey voted 20 plus years ago. It's Select Board Monterey officially. Capital S, capital B, 2 words.
To this policy. Work on edits to this policy. You see it?
Yep.
Yep.
Working at it.
To this policy.
Yeah.
And yeah, those can go because that got cut anyway.
The zero budgeting method builds a new budget essentially from scratch for a fresh start. Good.
We wanna just use your.
Yeah. Select Board TA and Finance Committee prepared an overview of the total budgetary increase resulting from various COLA increases. Let's delete this blue stuff, cause I feel like it's gonna get in the way. COLA.
Okay.
Solely A, or it would include A. And then we can just go with discussion ensued about various
Possible wage increase options.
possible wage increase options, including COLA, hourly rate increases, job performance.
So we leave in
Competitive.
select board here, but then we go with orange, right? Is that, except for that, whatever that.
Yeah, I just, I mean, I
Yeah,
just
that's
deleted
fine.
the blue
No,
stuff.
it works. Okay,
And then,
just making sure I was on the same page.
there was discussion about whether offering a one-time bonus was legal under Massachusetts law. Right? We'll
Yep.
keep that in, but I'm gonna delete one time in the middle of this sentence, and then make sure that this is there at the
Right.
beginning of that sentence.
Yep.
Justin proposed using Michelle proposed, Michelle's 1 out, right?
1 now.
Okay, I'm gonna correct that. And Justin moved that the select board, yeah, well, I made that, vote was called by the finance committee.
Okay.
Utilizing zero-based budgeting
Okay.
for future budgeting years, good. Justin said he tried to edit the financial reserve policy to align with Monterey's goals and he utilized Great Barrington's policy.
Down here, or up there? Okay.
I mean, if you see something, I'm just
No,
going
yeah, you know, I
where
just,
I see something.
I start reading and then you start talking and I try to.
I'll be silent for a while.
No, that's okay. I think I sent the edits to everybody already, so.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did.
I just wanted to make, I could have sent it to you guys and not them, but I think I sent it to everybody, so.
I will move to approve the minutes of December 6th, 22, as amended.
Second,
Call vote,
yes?
yes. I assume you're abstaining, Scott, because you're not here?
That's correct.
Alright, minutes are approved. $12.7.
Oh, different colors, yay.
I know.
Wait, red and green, you got 2
I
colors.
don't know why it did that. But
Christmas.
Purple and blue, okay.
Okay, to hire students being intaken. Okay. I wanna clarify this, cause I know what is happening, kind of. They've already done it, so students began taking college courses through the program at Mount Everett at the beginning of this school year. Starting next semester, students will be, it's actually next year.
Is it? I thought she said next semester, oh, so next year, alright,
It's starting next
year, yep.
I'll tell you what, I know for a fact they began taking them September, August, or
Oh, I
whatever.
know they've already taken,
I don't
started
know
taking.
100%, but I think it's
I
next
think
year.
she did say that they wouldn't have the transportation worked out till then, so I think you're right.
Starting next year, students will be taking college level class at SPR, at Simon's Rock. No, we'll just go with this, get rid of all
They were
this.
already, they're already taking college courses
Yeah.
at Mount Everett, but then they're gonna start taking them at
So we'll just
campus,
keep-
right?
We'll keep that red sentence, and then keep, next year, they expect SPRSD students to be able to attend
Classes at
at
Simon's
Simon's
Rock campus,
And
yeah,
we're gonna delete everything between year and next year.
great.
And then we'll capitalize that in.
Yeah, I like your addition. Been doing, lesson.
So, building department, Justin said that town council advises that the select board can delegate the oversight of the wiring and plumbing gas inspectors to the town administrator or building commissioner.
If the town chooses to adopt the appropriate section of Mass General Law.
We can do it without that.
Ah,
But then Justin asked if the select board was interested in adopting a consolidated department for inspections, and a discussion ensued. But we can do that without, we can just say, you know, the building commissioner is the supervisor of the wiring and plumbing gas right now. I mean, we could, it's not really
it
posted.
doesn't, right.
I mean, it's kind of posted for today, discuss building thing, Scott's gonna take care of that, but we do it right now, so I would delete the if the town chooses section.
Okay.
Because then it's brought up, the consolidated department is brought up.
It was just weird the way, but she did have something in there about adopting something.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's the way to do it long-term, but Melissa asked me when I was going to town council, hey, can you ask if we can just do it right now?
Right.
And I didn't think it would be the case, but Donna said it is the
It is.
case, we can just do it right now.
It's just weird that we can do it right now, but we still have to adopt that, like,
But you don't have to. right?
We don't have
We don't
to,
have
I think
to,
we
but
should
we could.
consider it,
Right,
because
okay,
it'd be nice if it's just as part of our bylaws or part of our accepted
okay,
laws, instead of, well, the select board can change it on a whim.
right.
But for now, I think we all agree that's kind of how, we've been operating under the assumption that's already how it was. We didn't know.
Right. Fair.
Yes, so perhaps we push this also to that same future meeting in January to discuss this entire process and maybe invite those inspectors in.
You don't want to do a bylaw on a special town meeting.
No, you're not talking about at the special town meeting, you're talking about a select board meeting?
Yes, not the special, good Lord, totally different.
He just means
Just for the,
conversation about that.
The
What they
subject,
think
that we're talking about.
Okay, I see what you're saying, I think I see what you're saying, Scott. You're saying we should have Don, Krupski and Fretzel in here and just talk to them about what they want?
Exactly. Who else knows better?
All right,
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
to do
that's
it.
the way you get harmony. You bring the players to the table and you ask them what makes them happy. So let's do it.
good. I like that idea.
Yeah, take that approach, and we can get going on things.
Well, it could be interesting to have them all or flesh them out.
It might. That might be interesting too.
Okay. Let's do this, appointment of interim town clerk. I wanna make sure we're on the same page.
Okay,
Marie
so
said it.
we're
Yeah,
gonna
Scott.
let's put that whole discussion with the building commissioner's office and the inspector's roles, who's in charge, et cetera, however you wanna phrase it, on hold, until I get a chance to talk to Don and brief him about the entire process. And then we can plan everybody to come in at one time and discuss the policy, or maybe we'll have a discussion before that, and then they'll come in another week later or something, so.
Well, here's the other thing, Scott. If
It's
they're
a
all
work
on
in
board,
progress. Excuse me?
if they're all on board with, doing it the way that we're kind of proposing, they don't necessarily need to come in. If someone disagrees, it'd be good to hear why. From my understanding, there might be no resistance from Plum and Gas to just, and I haven't spoken to him, so I don't wanna speak on his behalf, but, in theory, if everyone agrees that this is the right way to move forward, we don't necessarily need to meet with them, but if there's a disagreement, it'd be good to know what's going on.
Well, then that's when we'll meet, or if not, we won't. But we'll give them
Alright,
the
so
option.
you're gonna flesh out what everyone thinks, and then if we need to call them into a meeting, we'll do that.
Exactly. But I
Good.
just need I just need the actual MGL that shows our case.
It's sitting for you, paper copy here in
I know.
town hall, or we could
I know.
deliver it for you.
It's coming. It's okay.
I just
We don't
emailed
need.
it to you too.
I got you. I know where to get it. Thank you, Melissa. Smiley face emoji.
Do you have a way you wanna write that paragraph?
I'm pretty much okay with it except for the last sentence.
Yeah.
Which I would say which maybe would be Melissa, Susan and Scott felt that we should hold off on additional office hours until Marie completes her assessment of the state of the clerk's office.
I think that's accurate. Do you want to write it here,
Yeah,
just so that?
Absolutely,
we
I
have
just
one
needed to
copy?
draft it and that's fine. I'll try not to write fast so you can read my writing.
I've gotten good over the years with many different software handwriting. Just like thing with this, John Silver was the only one I had that time.
I have good handwriting if I don't rush. You're in bad shape when you can't read your own.
Yeah, so would be Eileen. I've been in a couple finance committee meetings where she writes a note and Michelle's like, what does this say? She's like, oh.
I don't know.
Computer usually gets it right.
Yeah, if you're typing. Okay, that's the end of that.
Speaking of penmanship. Alright, review police chief contract. Melissa pointed out that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I have no problems with that. Okay. Town administrators firing authority to the town administrator and department head rather than holding here with the select board terminating employee. Soon made a motion to delegate firing authority to the town administrator and department head in this specific instance for a probationary employee who is an at-will employee contingent on town council's approval, which we received. Oh, I jumped down.
Oh, you jumped down,
I looked
okay.
at fuel account, it looked good to me. I had red changes, you had purple, they seem pretty straightforward.
Okay.
And I just wanna make sure that this reads right, so the long and short of it is we can delegate termination authority for a specific instance. And Donna recommended that if we wanna just do it for an instance and not delegate the power permanently, you can say something like, you could put a time limit on it for the next 2 weeks, or, for this employee, or for this department, or whatever it may be. If you haven't received that opinion from town council, and you want to,
I'd like to see it.
then Melissa can forward it to you, please.
I'm good.
Just forward it to both Susan and Scott, right?
I understand it fully.
But the long and short of it was what was done was legal.
Yep.
Okay.
It's kind of counterintuitive, but we never put the minutes that we approve at a meeting as a document used at the meeting.
Okay.
That, it's kind of weird, it obviously is a document used at the meeting, but they're posted anyway, so it's like, just so you know.
Save you some concerns.
I would move to approve the minutes of 12/7/22 as amended by Susan and myself here, and Melissa's,
Second,
call vote,
yes.
yes,
Abstain.
alright, minutes are approved. Is there any unanticipated business? I do have a little thing, I just wanna make sure that everyone knows. Because that skating pond hockey tournament
Oh, on Buell.
on Buell on January 28th, there's been a lot of back and forth between the person who's organizing it, Alex Regan, and myself, Melissa, and the insurance company. I don't think that we necessarily need to take action on it, but he might be looking for $500 to up the insurance limit to make the state happy for the use of the boat ramp. I think probably it would come from Park Commission, I just didn't want to surprise anybody.
Do they have the money?
That's been going on, I don't know. They said they didn't for the tree work, but it's 500, not 30,000.
Yes, well, that could be a significant difference.
I guess select board expenses would be awkward to take that from. But it's possible, if we looked at it.
I wrote to them and told them that the park should have a meeting and vote.
Is Parks meeting tomorrow? I think they posted for either tomorrow or next Thursday, cause they've been doing Thursdays.
12:15. And I did see some Tom and Jerry. So
Yeah.
Oh dear.
So, yeah, Jerry and Tom, right? So just to keep everyone in the loop, no one, that won't be a surprise to anyone. Other unanticipated business was, as you may or may not have seen, I think I forwarded to everyone in advance of today's meeting, but the Hume versus Monterey case got bumped up to the Massachusetts Supreme Court. We're gonna Donna's gonna come in next week and explain. I don't think we should deliberate on it too much, because we don't know all the facts and we didn't post it, but the long and short of it seems to be, we get the money together to pay for it because we don't have it, or we just call it quits with the whole thing and
And let them have their trailer.
let them have their thing with a religious exemption from the zoning bylaws. But Donna's gonna come in next week. I said, I called her briefly because I was like completely blindsided by the whole thing. I mean, Massachusetts Supreme Court, pretty big deal.
I'm having that moment of buyer's remorse. I'm not sure that's the right phrase, but I remember when I was like, I'm not sure what the downstream effects of not paying Jeremiah are going to be.
$4,000,
And this would be an example of,
Hindsight's 20/20.
exactly, and this was in fact the sort of thing I was worried about.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the fact that they get away with having a trailer park when it's pretty clear the intent of the zoning rules was that we weren't going to have trailer parks.
Yeah. Alright, so Donna's gonna come in and explain that next Wednesday at 6. And maybe we'll make a decision then, or maybe we'll have to kick it off a week as to how we wanna move forward there. Any other comments and questions?
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments and questions from the public? No other unanticipated business?
I have one last piece of business.
You're on.
All right, Wednesday, the 28th, December, I make a motion to suspend any board meetings of that day due to its proximity of the holy day and week. Thank you.
Yeah, I would second. So we're not meeting on December 28th.
Correct.
That's
That's
the
the motion.
I'd second it.
Yes.
I'll
All
vote
in
yes
favor?
on the motion. Yes.
And then
We're waiting
the following
We're
week, being the first Wednesday of the month on the 4th, we reconvene at noon at our regular scheduled location.
And we will meet next week as well at 6.
We'll meet
On the
next week.
Correct. The 21st.
We'll meet on the 21st, which means we're probably gonna be signing the special town meeting warrant under the gun on January 4th.
Okay.
Just
Well,
so you're aware, but that's fine.
okay, I'll wear body armor.
Scott, we need your
Yes, sir.
vote on the motion to not meet on the 28th.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, that's.
I
He made it,
agree.
so I'm pretty sure he's gonna vote for it.
So that's you never know. Pretty sure things are happening. That's unanimous, yes, vote. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Vote on the motion
Thank
to
you.
adjourn.
Aye.
Yes?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Susan is a yes, so that's a unanimous approval. Meeting adjourned at 7:47 PM.
Thank you so